And then that was one of the reasons why I was thinking the 30 seconds of high cadence is good, because even after 7 minutes of warm up, you still might not be fully ready to get after it. All right, I got 7 o'clock, so let's start 45 minutes. So 10 minutes of warm up. Sort of following up on Mondays. A great way to do this, especially if you're just starting your warm up, is to start. You can start, say, in an easy gear. Like right now, I'm in my small chain ring, and I'm 2 open gears on the left, and it's very easy. So maybe after another 30 seconds, I'll just shift to 1 gear harder. My legs are spinning pretty fast. Oh, that's because I didn't hit start on the CompuTrainer, so therefore I have no resistance. That's better. And then you can switch to a slightly harder gear and start to just slowly ramp up your resistance. Let's see. So I love to use the word race pace, because when I ask people what their plan is for a race, whether it's a running race or a triathlon, and triathlon's a little bit harder because you actually have a race plan for your swim, your bike, and your run, even your transitions. I need to calibrate my CompuTrainer, so it's just give me like 20 seconds here. And when I ask people what their plan is, I usually get this blank look. So the CompuTrainer, you have to calibrate the tension. That's why, and I usually get that done before we start. But that was that interruption. But so I asked people, what's your race plan? And they look at me like that. And I did the same thing. I was fortunate to work in my early days at Super Jock and Joe Running Store, and worked with, Division I champions, high school, state, cross country track champions, people who went to Olympic trials, and they would be the people. I'd say, I'm doing this half marathon. What's your plan? I'm like, what do you mean? What's my plan? My plan is to go out and run. And then just them asking me questions like, well, how are you going to pace it? Are you going to, what pace are you going to go out at? What's your overall goal? And all these really great questions that made me stop and think, oh, yeah, I don't really have a plan. But then when I started to run with a plan, I started to realize how much more enjoyable and how much better I did. And the same thing really with the triathlon, in that, especially the longer distance the race is, the more you want to break it up. Especially in an Ironman, if you can take a bike course and split it up into 5 or 6 sections, it's all part of your plan. And then you can have, mini plans like this section, I'm going to ride it. This is my plan. This section's more hilly. This is my plan. The race will go by quicker because you're not thinking about 112 miles. You're thinking about 20 miles here, 30 miles there. And I really love to do the same thing, especially in a longer running race, like a half marathon. I like to have a plan for my first 3 to 4 miles. What it should feel like, what the effort should be, what my pace should be. And then have all these points along the way. It's like, okay, well, if I get to mile 6 and I still feel good at this pace, I might try running, at this pace. And then, because you have your best race when you basically negatively split it. So, and what most of us do is we go out too fast. And so that's why I like to use the word race pace. And it's tricky because at first, when you first hear the word race pace, really probably doesn't mean anything. If anything, it's more confusing. But the more you play around with it, the more skilled you get at using it, and it really helps you both in your training and especially in your racing. And so it doesn't really matter what race you're doing, there's always a race pace. The longer the race is, the lower intensity the race pace is, right? So your 5K running race pace is a lot higher intensity than your half marathon race pace. And then again, with triathlon, everything becomes a little bit harder because, you're on the bike ride, you're not out there to do the best, fastest bike ride you can do because we have to run. So you're out there to do the best, fastest bike ride you can do. It still allows you to run well. That's where it gets really tough. So today's workout, the main set is we're doing 2 times through. So 7 minutes. The intensity I've selected is half Ironman race pace, which is 75 to 85% generally of FTP. Really, that 85% is for elite athletes. I tend to be around 80%. Then 2 minutes harder than that, and then 3 minutes easy. So let's say you say, well, I'm training for an Ironman, so my race pace is going to be more like 65 to 75%. All of an Ironman training is really, racing is more aerobic. So I would go ahead and bump it up to this 70.3. If you're doing an Olympic distance race that you're training for, then you could go a little harder. And the way that I would recommend doing it is thinking about that first 7-minute block in terms of a 4-minute block and then a 3-minute block, which would lead into the 2 minutes harder. So the 4-minute block would be a little bit lower than your Olympic distance race pace, 3 minutes at your Olympic distance race pace, and 2 minutes above. So if you do that, you'll have to just monitor it when we do the 7 minutes. Either way, we're varying the intensity, and that's what's important, right? So I know a lot of you don't have power, so the power numbers don't really mean anything to you, and that's okay. So let's talk about what it should feel like, right? So in the 7 minutes, where we're between 75 and 85%, that's in the moderately hard or uncomfortable range, right? And there's at an aerobic level, breathing is at the top end of it. Breathing is maybe just a tiny bit labored. When we go above that, breathing starts to become labored. And even around the word uncomfortable, there's degrees of uncomfortableness. There's like slightly uncomfortable, solidly uncomfortable, uncomfortably uncomfortable. And then you get into, what you might describe as hard / very hard, painful, right? So we want to work around that uncomfortable. And so on these 7 minutes, whether you do that 4 minutes and 3 minutes or all 7 minutes the same, it should be in the uncomfortable range. And then the last 2 minutes should be more than uncomfortable. So you can even get into what I would describe as that hard range. So from moderately hard, around moderately hard plus or between moderately hard and hard. But the last 2 minutes, really pushing yourself, going for it, getting into a bigger gear, trying to keep your cadence up, sweating, a lot of concentration, no talking, right? Because that's above our race pace. And really one of the best ways to establish what your race pace is to exercise harder than it, because it makes it so much easier to identify what it is. And when you're out on the road, that's an even better time because the road undulates and you can go by feel. So a great workout if you're out on the road is just after a warm-up, alternate 4 5-minute sections. So 5 minutes below your race pace, 5 minutes at your race pace, 5 minutes above your race pace, and then 5 minutes very easy cool down. Not only is it a fun workout, but it'll make the workout go by really quick. As time goes on, you can extend that range, so you spend more time in your race pace. And then like me, you could do like 10 minutes below, 10 minutes at, 5 minutes above, 5 minutes recovery, 20 minutes 10 minutes below, 20 minutes at your race pace, 5-10 minutes above. So, okay, we're coming up on 10 minutes. So, I want to play around with our 30 seconds of high cadence. So, pick a relatively easy gear for the first one, and then I'm going to challenge you to pick slightly harder gear on the next one. So, here we go. 30 seconds. Bring your cadence up. Since we're going to be using harder gears, pay attention to the effort level, the breathing, if you have metrics like heart rate or watts. My computer's acting up. Okay, 30 seconds easy. So when we start this next one, somehow my computer wants to be helpful, like Siri and whatever Microsoft uses. So I stayed in the same gear to recover. Pretty easy gear. So go ahead and just go one gear harder. I can't read that. Okay, ready? 30 seconds harder. All right, recover. I can't read what you wrote. This sounds like we should have some good tunes. Yes. Good music. I just had to turn mine up. So that was definitely a bit harder for me, going just one gear harder, right? So if you're up for it, let's go one more gear harder. And then we'll try to get our cadence up. Realize our cadence won't be as high. Here we go, ready? But the intention is still there. And in many ways, even though my cadence is lower, it's maybe harder. Okay, recover. So let's go one gear easier for the recovery, and then we'll do the next one there. So it'll be like number 2. And it definitely gets my heart rate up a lot higher in the harder gear. Okay, here we're coming up on number 4, I think. Ready? Here we go. All right, easy. So depending on how that feels, you can stay there. I'm in the big chain ring, so I'm going one gear easier. I have my 2 available gears that I won't use because I'm in the big chain ring to the left of my chain. So last one, and then we start. Make sure your fan is on. Make sure you have hydration and towel. I think we're gonna sweat today. Here we go, last one. High cadence. Relax your shoulders, then your elbows. All right, easy. Okay. So 7 minutes, play around with your zone of uncomfortableness. You can start off on just slightly uncomfortable, and then over the 7 minutes, move into solidly uncomfortable. And then those last 2 minutes, we'll dig in. The other thing I'll invite you to play around with is toggling between gears, okay? Here we go. So get your cadence up. You don't have to shift to a harder gear right away. Just pay attention to how it feels, your breathing, and if it's still kind of aerobic and manageable, go ahead and switch to a harder gear and start to bring it into the range of slightly uncomfortable. But when we get into, say, the last 2 minutes of the 7 minutes, and probably on this consecutive 2 minutes, a lot of times you can toggle between gears. So the 1 gear harder will raise your numbers, like it'll raise your heart rate, raise your perceived exertion, raise your power, raise your speed, but it will also tend to drop your cadence slightly. And so within that, when you need just a very slight recovery, you can go 1 gear easier and still be in this zone that we're looking for, but get a micro recovery. Now, micro recovery, your cadence will go up. Typically, your speed, your power, your heart rate will settle down a little bit. And so you can use the gears to toggle that line. And this is true a lot of times in racing. When you find you're on that edge of where you want to be, you can just go back and forth. Obviously, outside, there's more gear changes required to stay there because the road changes, right? If the road is flat, you wouldn't have to adjust as much. But so when the road's changing, you constantly have to change gears, but you still have that ability to toggle. It's just not always the same 2 gears as it would be inside, but we're just on that line. Okay, so we're 2 minutes in. I can probably bring my effort up, and I can do that without switching gears, just by bringing my cadence up. So we certainly want to get into that place where we have to concentrate. And this is an area where, when left to our own devices, people tend to train right below this. And it's not doing themselves the service if they bump up the intensity. Still doing, a large portion of our training, overall training, aerobically at conversation pace. But when we do go hard, we want to get to that place where we're forced to concentrate. And that's whether swimming, biking, or running. We want to get to that place where naturally the brain's like, dude, take it easy. And you're like, no, keep going. Where you have to think about your gear selection and think about your stride. Think about pushing yourself. And you can see, I'm going to go a little bit harder now. 3.5 minutes in, but I can judge it by my talking rate. So I'm going to move it up before I stop talking. One way now I'm going to do that, so my cadence head come up, I'm going to go harder gear. Whew. All right, we're 4 minutes in, so if this is the time you wanted to go slightly harder, solidly uncomfortable. job, everyone. 5 minutes in. So I'll stand up sometimes just to bring my cadence up. Could also switch to an easier gear. Bring my cadence up. Mini rest. Go right back down. All right. So I can see I just went one gear harder to illustrate that toggling. This is definitely a gear too hard, but I can sit here and power, and then I switch one gear easier. My pedal cadence comes up, because every time you go into that harder gear, when you come back, it makes the other gear feel easier. In a workout setting, I like that more, like going to that gear that's too hard, not in a race. All right, 30 seconds, and then we really go for it. Maybe take a drink or wipe some sweat off in the next 20 seconds. So you're definitely going to need to shift one gear harder. Probably only one. You can go two, because that's what's going to make it feel hard. Ready? We're going on 5, 3. Here we go. Whew. It's only 2 minutes. 2 minutes of very uncomfortable. This too could be a place where you have to toggle gears. Like we're 42 seconds in. I feel like I'm running out of steam. So I'm going one gear easier. Already I can start to feel like, 10 seconds that it feels easier. I see my lat power drop. So now I'm going back up. Much harder. Myself, I would say that I'm like above Olympic distance race pace. Ten seconds. All right, recover. Whew. Go into the small chain ring. Find a gear that lets you spin with very little resistance. Nice job. So now we only have one more. Whew. Might need to go a couple gears easier. Just depends on how your legs feel. Christine forgot her towel. Sweat vest. Man, the easy feels good, doesn't it, after that? So you might also notice when we start back up at 7 minutes that it feels a little bit easier just because we did that 2 minutes really hard. One thing that I will say thank you to all of you who show up for these is that I was thinking last night, the benefit to me is that it forces me to be more intentional about my workouts. Because a lot of times, say, I guess going back like 5-6 weeks now, I was riding the trainer quite a bit, but it wasn't very structured. I would throw in, like, say, 3 times 5 minutes during the workout, but the total workout wasn't very structured. And the biggest thing that I've noticed is that these workouts go by a lot faster. Partly is because of all the thinking that I'm doing and leading it, but it's also mainly because of the structure. And people comment all the time, like when they do a workout like this, that, oh, it was so much like easier in terms of it went by faster, it wasn't monotonous, it wasn't boring. And that's the same thing in any workout, like especially a swim workout. I feel like the worst thing in the world is just going to the pool and swimming 2,000 yards or swimming for an hour without a plan. That's terrible. But when you have a plan and you have workouts and you have a warm up and you have, drills or a main set, everything is so much more enjoyable. And more importantly, you get a far, far, far superior workout. So that's the biggest benefit of structuring a workout. It's just a higher quality workout. All right, going like 12 seconds. So again, we can start off on the easy side of uncomfortable, just slightly uncomfortable, and then raise it through the 7 minutes. Okay, you guys ready? Here we go. So find your gear. Start in the big chain ring. Right now, I have an 11 speed, so I'm probably like in gear 9-2 showing that I wouldn't get into. So I'm going to switch to a couple gears harder. Make sure I can keep my cadence up. This one's going to be, like if you wrote it the exact same way, would probably naturally be a little bit harder, simply because we have the fatigue from last time. So, but you can alternate that. You can play around with it, just by choosing those first 3 minutes to be just slightly uncomfortable instead of solidly uncomfortable. It's up to you. Maybe you want to go for it again. You want to get into that uncomfortable, earlier. So more power to you. I think I'll join you. What the hell? It's only less than 5.5 minutes plus 2 minutes. So when I want to raise my effort, the first thing I look at is my cadence. If my cadence is low, I do my best to bring that up first. And then when my cadence is high and I still want to raise the effort, then I change gears. I think that's much better than having a low cadence and wanting to raise the effort and just do it by switching gears, but allowing your cadence to stay low. I don't like that at all. I don't like how it feels. I know it's slower, and I know it burns your legs out more. So I know that when you're out there on the road and you follow the same protocol, bringing your cadence up and then switching gears, you'll feel better. So what I did there is I switched to 1 gear harder because I knew I was going to stand up. So when you stand up, you need more resistance. Just to kind of change up my muscle groups. And then I sat down and shifted back to an easier gear, which really allows me to pick my cadence back up. Shot. All right, we're coming up on 4 minutes in, 3 minutes left, and then 2 minutes hard. I'm going to use these last 3 minutes to be in that state of having to toggle back and forth between gears. So I'm going to really look at primarily 2 metrics, and I'm going to balance them. One is my power and one is my cadence. So I'm going to get my cadence up because I want to hit an average of 90. So every time I go easier gear to get my cadence up, my power is going to drop. So I can counter that by going to a harder gear, working on keeping my cadence up, but knowing it might drop to bring my power up. When I do switch to a harder gear, if I can keep my cadence up, my power will go up too, a lot more. But I'm trying to balance those two. You can also just balance your cadence with your perceived exertion. If you're not in that solidly uncomfortable effort level, go ahead and go a little harder. Whew. 30 seconds left, and then we go 2 minutes. Maybe take a drink. Going in 5, 3, 2. All right, here we go. 2 minutes. Make it hurt. Since nobody can hear you, you feel free to just yell out. I have to yell out silently because you would be like, "Ah, quit yelling." But what I want to do is just be like, "Ah!" Oh, so hard. Minute and a half. Come on. Come on, Lance. my verbal description of my perceived exertion is, this sucks, but it'll benefit me. Yeah. Yeah. 45 seconds. Nice job, 30 seconds left. Finish it off, last 15 seconds. Maybe go to a harder gear if you can. Five-ish. 3, 2. All right, easy. Whew. Go to the small chain ring and an easy gear. Oh, man, good job. So one of the reasons why I like to do these workouts with you is if I was just standing here talking, I would have no idea the pain you're going through. But now I know. So it does help me, like, when you get done with that, be like, make sure you're in a super easy gear because your legs are probably trashed. So very little to no resistance. Bring your cadence up. That'll just help flush them out. Bringing your cadence up will increase the blood flow. Increasing the blood flow will help eliminate all that waste product quicker. That was hard. Yeah, I'm with you, man. That kicked my butt too. Whew. But it makes us stronger. All right, we are almost 2 minutes into the 6 minutes recovery. We are, in a second, going to do some one-legged cycling. So the way to do this, you can pick any leg. I'm going to pick my right leg first. You can stop your pedaling, unclick from your right foot. What I like to do is drape it behind my trainer. That just holds it out of the way. And then just start pedaling with one pedal. And you may need to shift gears. And then try to find that place in your pedal stroke where there's a dead spot. It's usually towards the bottom. And then work on pulling through the pedal stroke and pulling up. You'll feel your hip flexor work a lot. Let's see if you can get rid of that jerkiness. Now let's go ahead and click back in, both legs, and just spin it out, both legs. All right, now unclick the other foot. In my case, it's now my left foot is unclipped, and spin just one leg. You definitely have to find the right gear because if you're in too easy of a gear, there's just not enough resistance. And if you're in too hard of a gear, you can't turn the pedal over. You might even find that one leg is better than the other leg. So that would mean you might want to spend a little more time. Okay, let's do both feet in, spin it out. If you found that one had more of a dead spot, might be good to just do 30 seconds on each of your rides. Maybe like 30 seconds for each leg, but the leg that's not as good, add a second 30 seconds. You can do these in your warm-up too. You can also do them if it's very safe, like on the trail, someplace where there's 0 cars. You can try doing it out on the road. So we're a minute 50 left, so we'll just stay here and both pedals, both shoes and both pedals. Easy, spin it out. It's a solid 45 minutes. I probably snuck in an extra few seconds in there. But now you get to go throughout your day and know that you got a great workout in. I know that for me, I'm sure for you too, like whenever you get in that nice solid workout early in the morning, especially before work, it's like everything else just feels a little better, a little easier, because part of it, you don't have that nagging pressure thought in your head, like, oh, I got to work out later today. Now you don't have to. Hey, Patricia. Yes, great job, everyone. I know that several of you have been on these bike rides Monday and Wednesday, so I'm really curious to see if you notice, when you get out there, if you haven't been, but outside on the weekends or during the week, if you notice that you start riding stronger. It's what I would expect. Just these indoor workouts just really boost your performance. All right, 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Drink your last. I'm almost done with my bottle. All right, let's call it a day. Great job, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for saying hi. Thanks for the comments. Have a great one. See ya.